Oh, good morning. Welcome to the Never Ending Glory Story. We can't make this stuff up. I'm Julia Mason, and I'm here with two special people. We've got Jeff Batita. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning.
And this is Noah Batita. He was on our podcast a couple weeks ago. He's the guy behind the scenes,
Welcome
and
back.
this is his father. And we have a lot in common in sales. We're going to talk about sales today.
Sales done right.
Sales done the right way.
Sales and the glory of God.
Glory to God. Yeah, glory to God. There's so much that we can talk about. And I was just, Jeff has written a book. He's got it behind there. Selling Without Scripts, from Meatballs to Mulligans to Model Homes. So,
Mouthful.
mouthful. However, I want to just talk a little bit again about how we all met. And because it is that part of the glory story that we like to talk about, glory to God. And so for anybody that hasn't watched our podcast, so it's new. So I had just come into town and I sold my house in Florida because my business had dried up, my children's book business, and it was time for me to get out of Florida. It was the right time to sell my house. It was 2022. So people were just flooding into Florida. So it was the right time for me to get out. I couldn't really afford it much anymore because one thing that struck me in the book is this is talking about the customer experience and customer service and everything. The prices were going up on my the HOA and some of those other things, but the quality of the work around the house was going down, if that makes sense. So I was like, and I was kind of a watchman on the wall. I was looking around. I was like, it's time. I'm going. And my illustrator, who was award winning, he's won awards for and written and illustrated and written over 100 books and won awards for every one of them. He said, Julia, you need to be centrally located now because you'll be able to sell all over the country and get your message out. Our business is drying up in Florida. We weren't selling anything, and was a Disney animator, so we've got that Disney connection. And he was an animator for Disney, and then he moved back home to the Midwest, and he's from Kentucky. And so I sold my home, and I was 54 at the time, and I took an adventure out to California with my dog and went to Texas, and I was making connections for my book all through from Florida all the way to California. And then I came home to Indianapolis because I wanted to come home. My family business I worked for my parents in the book business. We represented over 100 publishers. It was called Ileana Educational Products, and we had a sales force throughout the Midwest, Virginia, and then me in Florida. And I was their number one sales producer, created library collections. And so I would fly home twice a year to a sales meeting where we had a 3-day sales meeting with the publishers. We worked for the big jobbers too. We represented Penguin Putnam and all the big guys, all the way down to small indie publishers. And they would present their product line, and I would take it out and show my customers. But when I was home, I would look around and I'd be like, I just really like these people in Indiana. And so I took a leap of faith and I sold the house and I took my trip because I'm doing research for a book that I'm writing, an adult series that I'm writing on recovery and codependency and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Principles from my children's book. So here I get here and I don't know anybody. And I'm going to build my business one person at a time, one entrepreneur at a time. And just like I did in Florida, I sold to libraries down there, school libraries. And I just hit the ground running and started networking. I just went out and started meeting people. And then I was like, well, I've got to meet some more people. So I went over to the LA Fitness to get a membership. And they were like, I said, do you need someone to come work? Because I wake up really early in the morning. And they're like, yeah, we do. So I started working there because I figured I'll meet more people. And that's where I met Jeff.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
I can't tell you how many amazing people I met there that I'm still in contact with that, are future probably people that we do business with. And, I went to benefits with people out of LA Fitness. I mean, I was just God sent me over there, go get a membership. And that's where it took
Yeah.
me. So that's the background on how we met.
Yeah. Funny how it works out. Well, and then to continue that story, and obviously with Noah, and we're talking about, family, my family and everything. And I mentioned Noah. Noah was over at the other fitness place over at Lifetime. Um, and but I think I'm not sure how we got into asking, what he did. I probably said my daughter's graduated and was down in Florida. Or at the time she may have just been graduating and moving down there. But and then I mentioned Noah was into music and producing and audio and all that stuff. And that's when you mentioned the book. I think the audio book was the first thing we talked about, right?
Yeah, we talked about
Hey,
that
maybe,
because, yeah, you were just telling me about Noah, and I knew that I had just gotten invited to do a podcast, and I knew in my own mind I wanted to have a podcast. And you had talked about Noah being, you know, um, what do I say? Producing music. And I said, well,
Yeah.
I'm a lyricist and I've written this children's book and I wrote it in rhyme. And then we talked about ADHD and our boys. We connected through our boys because I have a
oh
son,
yeah,
Riley, who's 25 and Noah's 22. And then I said, well, is Noah an artist? And you said, he is. And that's how we started
yeah, that's
talking.
right.
It was all
Yep,
because we had boys that were similar in spirit.
yeah.
And I have a
Kind of
daughter.
this,
I have an older daughter, so it's older. Is your daughter older than Noah?
yeah, she's 26.
Okay, yeah. So the same thing. I have a 28. She'll be 28 this week, Madeline, and then Riley's 25. So we have the same kind of makeup in our family. So,
Yep, yep,
and then
yeah.
somehow we started talking about golf and Exmoor Country Club, and then found out that you were the head pro at the country club that I grew up in. And when my
Yeah.
parents left Chicago, they came to
I
Indianapolis.
was an I was an assistant there. I never was the head pro. And that's when I was an apprentice at that time.
Oh, you were an
So I got
apprentice.
I
Okay.
got in the I got in the business in 90, I think 90 91. I started down in Wilmette at Westmoreland Country Club.
Oh,
And and then my second stint as an apprentice was at Exmoor. I think I was there 94, 94 up to 98. Um, and then I got an opportunity at a very prestigious club out in Ohio, the Inverness Club in Toledo, Ohio, where there've been a ton of major tournaments played. I mean, U.S. Opens, U.S.
oh my
Amateurs,
gosh.
et cetera. A lot of history, a lot of history. Um, so I was there from 98 to 2000 roughly. Uh, no, I was there for a season or two. Yeah, a season or two, I believe. But anyway, then I came back to the Chicago area when I was at Turnberry up in Crystal Lake. So my first head professional job was actually in 99 or 2000 at Turnberry Country Club in Crystal Lake.
Okay. That's
Exmoor, I worked
interesting.
under a guy named Ron Romack. So that would have been 93, 94 when I got to Exmoor through like 90, 96, 97, I think. So that's kind of the
Okay, so
timeline.
that's really interesting. So my parents, okay, the timeline, that's interesting because then what my parents left Chicago and my mom was promoted with World Book, and my dad, they moved to Indianapolis in 92. So you came in right after that. You would have been in at Exmoor when I got married. We had our wedding there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh,
So
wow.
no,
Wow.
yeah, and that's what I wanted to figure out this timeline. And yeah, we had one of my godmother and father were members of Westmoreland.
Yep. Yep.
So
Westmoreland
we
was
know a
where I,
lot of the
where I
same
started.
people. Okay. So Noah, what was it like to have to be in Chicago and have your dad in the golf business? Did you ever hear stories and stuff like that?
I didn't hear more until probably later on because I was just, I think, about 4 or 5 when we moved. But later on, was able to learn some stories and learn about. I think the coolest one is your Michael Jordan story, and just getting
Oh,
to interact with some NBA players.
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Michael Jordan. Yeah, we'll have to you tell Michael Jordan, I'll tell you about Michael Jordan. You go first.
yeah. No, he used to come out to Exmoor a lot. Obviously, up there
Yep.
in Chicago, and that was back in the in the Bulls' heyday. Um, he Rod Stern, or no, what was his name? Not Rod Stern. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he wasn't the commissioner of the NBA. He was in one of the upper office in the NBA. I can't remember his name. He was a member there.
Yeah, he was my
But
parents' friend. Yeah, they were friends with him.
yeah, he used to bring out David Robinson, Charles Barkley,
Mhm.
Danny Ainge, Michael Jordan all the time. Um, but when you work there, I've never been one that's starstruck, and so, but people when they go to the golf course, I mean, they want to get away, right? And they want to get away from all the stuff that they're having people hound them all the time, want to get pictures taken with them and this and that. So I didn't ask him for an autograph or anything like that. But he bought a golf club, and I re-gripped it for him, and his hands were about this big. So I had to put a bunch of grip tape on it and build it up about as thick as a baseball bat. And he was a member at Windstone. I don't remember Windstone Country Club, but he was a member there. And back then we didn't have a computer, a point of sale system. We hand did the chits, an actual chit, right?
Yeah,
You had
yeah.
a top layer, you had a yellow layer and a pink layer, right?
Mhm.
We kept one went to the accounting office, and then one went to a drawer type thing, right? So I took the top one that he signed in pencil, and so I have that framed with his picture, so it's very unique. Um,
Yeah.
but he used to do some interesting things, Jordan. When he'd go play golf, when he'd leave the golf course, he'd have a body double that would go, and they would go and leave in the same car, but you didn't know which car Jordan was actually in. So like paparazzi and all that, they didn't know which car to
Oh,
follow because there was always people that tried to, find him and track him down, and just he was constantly being hawked. Obviously, he was almost like Jesus Christ.
yeah,
They put
I
him on that big of a pedestal.
that's for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, because my dad played golf for Northwestern University, and he played basketball for 1 year, and
Yeah.
he won the intramural athlete of the year. My dad shot 50 for 50 free throws and holds the record at Northwestern University. So I grew up
Oh
in a
wow.
basketball family, right? Yeah, and I loved basketball. I'm an athlete, and I played junior golf, and I played, as a competitive swimmer, I swam up at Exmoor, and then, but I remember when Michael Jordan came to Chicago to start playing for the Bulls, because he
Yeah.
lived in Northbrook, where I grew up when he first got there, and he would drive around in his red Corvette.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my dad would take me to the Bulls games, and because I loved Michael Jordan so much, and I saw him fly. I believe I can fly. I mean, literally one
Oh
time, you
yeah.
guys, I was at a game with my dad, and I saw him fly from, the probably quarter court and dunk it. You're like, wow,
Yeah. He made it look easy.
he
That's for
did.
sure. And then obviously the debate continues, and obviously us that grew up in that era, we know he's the GOAT, but people want to argue that.
Yeah.
was gonna say
Um,
it's kind of one thing that I took with me a little bit is like how you carried yourself with like interacting with stars and not being like starstruck like that. And like that's kind of how I can carry myself in the political realm a little bit, with interacting with politicians if they're, bigger named or something like that to, feel more get a more personal relationship.
Right. Because you're in that
yeah,
arena, you're in the governmental arena. Um, yeah. Tell us a
Right.
little bit about that, Noah. I mean, what's that like?
No, yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah, you think you kind of provided me that foundation a little bit to not feel so starstruck and to be able to remain calm and treat them like the people they are, and in turn kind of creates a more personable relationship. And they just want to be treated like people too. So I think that's something you instilled into me that is very important.
And
Yeah, well,
yeah, yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say the old saying, I mean, they put their pants on just like us and they sit on the toilet just like us, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so,
yeah, exactly. Cause like when I was down in Florida, I I did a lot of events with some big time authors, teen authors and stuff like that. And there was a woman named Gwinnett Tilly Turner, and I did an event with her, and I think that was in 2010. She was friends with Andrew Young, her daddy moved with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then she came into town, and because we had so much in common. She went to Lake Forest. She grew up in St. Augustine, and her daddy was
yeah,
with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But she went to Lake Forest College, and she was very refined. And she wrote this book on Harriet Tubman, and I love Harriet Tubman. And she wrote a book on Fort Mose, which is in St. Augustine. And so she said, I went out to see her one time when she came into town, and at the hotel, and we were just having dinner, and she was just talking, and I said, yeah, you're really connected with a lot of very famous people. And she goes, they're just people.
yeah,
Then I started thinking about my past, and I'm like, wait a minute, so am I. But I never, because I grew up and it didn't, they were just people. They were my parents'
Mhm.
friends. And and then I
yeah,
got the opportunity to meet Governor DeSantis when he was a senator, and I had co-authored a motivational teen program with that had Dr. Ben Carson in it, and Andy Andrews, an author, and Bethany Hamilton. And I did an event with Bethany Hamilton, and Casey DeSantis interviewed me on her show in Jacksonville, and I met DeSantis, and he read through our program. He's like, "This is amazing," and because we were launching it in St. Johns County and Clay County, he's like, "I want you to meet my wife." And I'm sitting there with DeSantis when he was a senator, and I mean, he's just a normal guy like you, just
yeah,
normal
oh
dude,
yeah,
just a down to earth family guy, has the same values as us. Wasn't
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just it. That was instilled with by my parents too. And I could go and have a bragamony, but I'm not going to do that. They're just people.
Yep,
They just
yeah,
happen
no,
to
no
be moving in
question.
that arena of government like Noah has right now. And then, you're in real estate. I'm in, books and publishing and art. So arts and entertainment, it's the same thing. You can
Yeah,
carry those sales types and how you interact with people throughout all of that. And that's what I like
yeah, and that's what
about the book.
that's what I say. I mean, and I started this about 4.5 years ago, and I know it's only a short read, 90 pages, but I put it on the shelf because and hadn't done anything with it. Um, and then got motivated just really over the last year and a half. I got motivated, and heck, Beth, my wife, nobody even knew I was finishing it, but I I kind of started it as it was really be about family business and kind of growing up in the golf business, and um, wasn't really going to be a sales book at all. I mean, I wasn't going that way, and then I kind of had an epiphany because I thought I was seeing such a contrast from corporate America to family business and then I talk about like privately owned country clubs, even that each one gets a little further from human connectivity, but yet it's just kind of different stages, right? I mean, a family business or Italian restaurant was all about connections, right? I mean, and as I stated in the book, my mom, when customers came in the restaurant, I mean, she practically had everybody's order memorized because she saw them and had such great relationships. I mean, she'd have a bottle of Chianti on the table
Yeah.
before they sat down. I put that in the book, right?
Yeah, I loved
And
that.
and that's what made our restaurant. Our restaurant was busiest #1 restaurant in Champaign-Urbana.
Was it
Um,
really? That's where my brother and my grandma went to school at University of Illinois.
oh
My
yeah.
grandmother
So that's what,
graduated from
yeah.
there, and my
And then
grandpa.
we had our 3 cousins who opened up restaurants. So there was about a 1 block radius where there was us, Dom's. My dad's not Dominic, so the restaurant was called Dom's Patio. And then we had Minici's was our cousin, Little Italy, and then Menzella's, and those are all of our cousins. And so um, Sunday nights they'd rotate, play cards at different restaurants. So everybody, you know, that was the hub of Italian food in Champaign for many, many years.
Wow.
Um, when my dad opened that in 1966, and then growing up there in the restaurant. But I mean, yeah, that's where I learned how, and that it's like we keep going back to, it's all about relationships, and learning how to talk to people, and being a great listener above all.
I love
Um,
that part because that is what really resonated with me. And I was looking at like we have this little daily motivational thing, and it sits in the bathroom. I went in the bathroom and I was washing my hands and I looked over and it was on August 12th and it says the art of conversation lies in listening. And
yeah, yeah,
that's what I love the most about your book because I was the same way in my business
yeah,
selling books to my customers. I literally, before I went to sales meetings, I would shut off the radio. I wouldn't answer my cell phone and I would start, praying like, give me listening ears, keep
yeah,
my mouth shut, give me
yeah.
wise
Well,
eyes to watch cues, to see what they're interested in. And I got to know my customers like your mom got to know the customers in the restaurant because I was listening to their stories about their family. I was watching the books that they liked and what their sort of taste was in the book
yeah,
business. And that's how I was able to be successful. And then you also talk about referrals. And that's how I built my business in Florida by referrals. They liked me. They give me $1,000 order that would go to 5,000 to 8,000 to 10,000. Then they would call their friends and they'd say, "Oh, you need to use her. She comes from a family business. They're entrepreneurs. They always answer the phone."
yeah, exactly.
And that's so
You know,
important. Business connections.
yeah. Now it's interesting. I've had a few people. So I have a gentleman. He's a great friend of mine, by the way. He was a member. He was the president of Westmoreland when I got in the golf
Oh,
business,
okay.
and he lives in Arizona now. His name is Dave Fishburne. He's 84 years old, and I mean, you'd think he's 55. He's sharp as a tack, and he was with one of the big four. He's an astute businessman. He read the book a couple days ago, and he said it was on point. He said it was a great book. He goes, you were hard on because you're hard on publicly traded. He goes, you're hard on public companies. And so I think also point I want to make is that hard maybe, but it's nothing. I don't think. I mean, I'm no longer employed with the publicly traded company as of last Friday, but it's not meant to be a rub because as I put in the book, I love it. I enjoyed it. And if I have the opportunity to get a job with another publicly traded company, all's I'm trying to point out in this book is that if I become a leader over salespeople again in my next role, or you know, if I'm not, if I'm over salespeople, all I want to do is instill in my salespeople to make connections. It keeps going back to that. It's not saying that corporate is bad, that it's the evil witch. I'm just stating facts that corporate is you're going to be judged by numbers. You're going to be judged by what you do today, not what you did yesterday. And I'm just stating facts in this book that corporate America has lost a lot of the warmth of human interaction, right? I mean, big corporations, hardly any of them. I mean, you talk about the sales side of it, have human beings that answer phones anymore. I mean,
Right.
everything
Exactly.
is automated, right?
And I can't
And
stand that. When I'm calling places, I'm like, can a person just
yeah,
answer the phone, please?
Yeah, and this book, a lot of it is my experiences and you could say opinion, yeah, but it's opinion from experiences. It's not just a random thought, but also, I've read a lot of, and I cite several of them in here, case studies. And so I'm a statistics person. Statistics don't lie, right? And
No,
when you go back to, I mean, every builder in America that's corporately owned is going to drive to their salespeople that um, you know, they want a benchmark of 20% cancellation rate. I mean, that's what they look for. And that is really old school thinking. The studies are saying you don't want to push your people towards that because that pushes bad deals. And it
absolutely.
pushes a higher cancellation rate. The company I just left, we were dealing with a higher cancellation rate, way above the 20%. And they're also coming and tasking us as the sales leadership, hey, you got to get cancellations down. Well, you can't push to have a cancellation rate and then ask to get lower cancellation rate because they're conflicting views, they're conflicting methodologies, right? I mean, so um, what you need to push is better discovery, better connections, and putting people under contract, whether they're buying a car, a home. A home's their largest purchase of their lifetime, likely. You don't want buyer remorse. You
No,
don't
you
want to deal
don't.
with the
No,
you
you
don't
don't.
want to deal with the cancellations later. And
Right.
statistics show too, all when I call them the gurus, it's like a four-letter bad word now, but all the gurus, they talk about getting to contract. That's their sales pitch is put everybody under contract after the first visit, ask for the sale, ask for the sale, ask for the sale. Yet they don't talk about what happens after the statistics of losing those deals. A successful salesperson, if they average 100 sales a year, whether they're selling widgets or tables or cars or homes, they're probably going to sell 100, whether they do it wrong or right. But that 100 that they sell the wrong way, I bet you they don't net 100. But if their net sales are going to be higher if they do it the right way. It's just there's too
I
much out there
totally agree.
statistically that says it's going to be. But that was a little bit of a tangent just because it was interesting. I've had a couple of people say, man, you're kind of hard on publicly traded and you work in publicly traded. And so, the book isn't a rub against publicly traded companies. I'm just stating how things work. It's real world. It'd be like, you know, denying that the sun comes up in the morning. I mean,
I
you know,
totally agree. I mean,
it's what harm is there in stating the facts that you could not have a CEO of a company look at me in the eye and say, yeah, you're not being judged on spreadsheets. You are. So all I'm stating is the obvious in this book. And
yeah.
for those who might chastise me, well, it's my belief, and I believe in doing things the right way. And I think the right way is to treat people with respect if they're a customer of yours, and that you'll win in the long run anyway. That's if you do it the right way, and companies will see better numbers. They'll see their growth if they train their sales force to sell from a you're selling from a position of strength then too, because you're selling from your soul. You're the strength is in your connection, right?
Yes.
So a position of strength may mean something else to a corporation, right? They're not thinking of the human connection side. I'm thinking of the human. That's your position of strength, is that you made a connection, so you became an advisor, and then you're trusted by that person on the across from the desk, right?
Hmm.
You want that trust first, and you're only going to gain it by being genuine and doing the right thing. So
Absolutely. I liked what Noah said on our last podcast when he was on. He was saying, about his purpose in this world. And I wanted to comment on it and I didn't get a chance because, my children's book teaches people to find out their passion, what they're good at in life.
yeah,
And I want to teach parents to find their kids' strengths and focus on that. Okay. Because then you are going to come from a human, genuine connection. Whatever career that is, whether it be a doctor, a lawyer, a real estate agent, a salesperson, Noah, and that's really important. And when I was in the book business, no, let me talk about, I want to talk a little bit about, I've got three things to talk about with your book. Before, when I left Chicago and got married, we moved to Pennsylvania. And my husband at the time, my kid's father, uh, we moved there because his company was doing an environmental environmental cleanup. We worked with the Army Corps of Engineers, so we were working on major contracts. And I was the assistant buyer on that site. Okay. So I praise God because I literally got to see, I was myself and the buyer were negotiating large contracts. We were building the largest incinerator in the world, so they were huge contracts. And I got to see salespeople, and I got to watch slimy salespeople, and I got to watch the ones that were coming in that really wanted, and we just sat down in our office and talked to them. And I gleaned a lot of information from that, right? It was amazing, you guys. I mean, and Mike and I, they'd leave and be like, we're not doing business with that guy. It's like, he's so obnoxious.
Right.
You can sense it. And I don't like slimy salesperson people, and I don't want to be that way. And then when we went down to Florida and we were buying our first home in this brand new planned community in Fleming Island, Florida, I was so appreciative of our real estate agent because we were looking at two houses, and I really wanted this one, and he had to go back to work, and I'm talking to the real estate agent. She's like, I'm not selling this to you because you're going to stress your husband out. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
Now I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, that's looking out for you. I mean, if it was a money grab, it would have been the opposite. When you use the word slimy would be, yeah, let's go for this and let's convince your husband this is the way to go, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's integrity is another word. I mean, it's like you got to be able, and I reference it in the book too. You got to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm doing things the right way, because it's a long haul game too. And I say too, obviously sales is a numbers game, and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but a good salesperson is going to do the right things. They're going to build their pipeline. They're going to continually hunt, go out and search for new business. They're going to make their connections, but it's going to tie back to their successes. They're going to tie back to their reputation. Okay. Their referral business is going to build if they do it the right way. If they have people that go under contract that are remorseful, or that shouldn't have went under contract, and then they find out they're not qualified because they don't put them through a pre-approval process. Again, we're talking about the home sales business because I just got out of that, or am temporarily out of it.
Temporarily.
Then they're going to, they're going to spread bad word, right? They're going to
your reputation. I mean, your reputation.
And those are the people that are going to give bad reviews, and because they felt forced. But if you were truly an advisor first on their side, then they're gonna go to bat for you. Um, they're gonna refer their cousins, their brothers, their sisters, their friends. They're gonna post the stuff on social media of the experience they had, and I use the word experience over service. I've always had the notion that a service is short-lived, right? Service is the word service I don't like. I like the word experience, customer
I
experience.
loved that about your book, the customer experience, because that's how I ran my business too in Florida, and everything was my reputation and
it goes beyond.
Yeah.
It goes beyond the deal. When I was
it
on the
went
floor,
way beyond the deal.
yeah. When I was selling, when I was on the floor, it's just the simple stuff. Again, handwritten notes to customers after they close. I mean, I let them get in their home, and I would make sure that just a few days after, I'd send them the note, hope you're settled in, and thank you. It was a pleasure working with you, yada, yada, yada. Right. I mean, it's just the little touch points, those types of things. And, um, you know, they go a long way, but again, if you get the slime ball reputation, you know, depends on how you measure success and what success looks like, but you might have short-term success, make a bunch of money in a short period of time, and God bless you, I guess, if that's what you want to do. But if you want to have a long career and one that's built on the right principles, I mean, do it the right way,
I totally agree.
so
And that because my mind's spinning, I'm thinking of all these stories. So when I was competing in the book business with a lot of these people, these men and women, in suits, that everything was run by a computer program. They were picking out, what I was doing was opening day collections on brand new schools because I moved down to Florida. There are brand new schools popping up everywhere. So these were larger contracts, and my customers like me because the librarians, I actually had samples of the books. So I go out and show them to them,
yeah,
and I would actually read the books. So if I had a topic of, let's say, World War II for third graders, I had 5 different publishers that created that type of that subject matter, and I would
yeah,
read them all and tell them. They'd be like, "Do which one?" I'd be like, "Don't buy that one. Buy this one." You know. But these guys were numbers driven that I was competing with, and that was the the feedback. I would always call and get feedback. How are these collections um, circulating in the library? So that's why I was able to. They knew I was a woman of integrity, and they said, "We like you because you read the books." Okay, and so
yeah,
I did this whole high school library in Clay County where I lived, right, and I did Ponte Vedra's whole collection, and when that Ponte Vedra High School, when that popped up in St. Johns County, and we worked as a team to create this with the librarian. So many miracle stories and miracles. It won one of the best library in the state because we collaborated. Right now, then a couple years later, and there were no problems with that order. A couple years later, I did $110,000 contract in Clay County where I lived, and it was during this time where there was no money, there was no budgets, and my
yeah,
customer, like, they chose us. Well, the second that they chose us, all those guys in suits were calling the customer, telling him not to use my company. I mean, cutthroat stuff. And then
yeah, yeah,
when I created the collection, and there were a lot of problems with it, but I was on site fixing those problems every single day for like 2 weeks. We were on the phone with the family, and the customer looked at me and he goes, "You're actually not like these other salesmen. They just take the commission and they run. You're here fixing the problems. They wouldn't do that." That's when I
yeah,
knew there's a
yeah.
difference.
Well, and it's kind of cliche, but I mean, again, going back to true salespeople, advising first, but the sale goes way beyond the transaction. I
Hmm.
mean, and that's what makes a good salesperson. I mean, you know, I only bought one new car in my life. I'm a used car guy, but um, you know, I went to the person I bought my car. That's when I was in Chicago. But the reason I went and bought from this one particular person I remember was that um, I was told by someone else, "Well, go to him or her." I don't remember if it was a guy or a gal, this because it was so long ago, but is because that they followed up after the sale with this other person. So a lot of
Yeah.
people don't recommend car salesmen.
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's just, you don't hear that very often. But again, that's a unicorn business, but they've got that sales. I mean, how many times are salespeople referred to? Oh, don't be like a car salesman. I mean, that
Yeah. Yeah.
mentality.
Used car
The
salesman.
mentality
Yeah.
has always been that you pull into the parking lot of the lot of a car dealership, and they come out there, they're on top of you, and they start selling the heck out of you, right? And
They're
so,
like
um,
sharks.
yeah, I mean, but and I guess again, behind the premise of this book, I thought the timing was that we're living in a world where I mean, people are pounded every day with sales pitches, right?
Oh God,
And we're
everywhere.
pounded with you. You can't read an article on Facebook without ads popping up. I mean, you can't go without getting um, spam text messages, spam calls. I mean, we're hitting right and left and right and left, automation after automation after automation, and AI is it hasn't even scratched the surface. I
Oh,
mean,
I know it.
the chat GPTs, the world, and the co-pilots and all that stuff. I mean, that's
Ugh.
just scratching the surface. And I look at it and go, but the bottom line, and I quote unquote in the book, I said people are still starving for the human connection, but
Absolutely.
a lot of people just don't know it. And I think corporations turn a blind eye to that too. In general, big corporations, I think they're so hardened to just drive revenue and drive numbers that they don't realize that the people are what matters still. The people are the buyers. The end user, the consumer, is the person that needs to feel like a person. And you don't want automation throughout the whole process. You don't have to push a button on a phone, number one, to talk to get sent to another automated, area. I just had that happen the other day. I was trying to get through and I'm like, no, I want to speak to somebody. I have a question that's not coming up on your menu. It's not related to their stupid menu.
I know. I
But
can't stand it. I mean, and the thing
yeah,
about that, Jeff and Noah, is it wastes time.
yeah,
It's wasting our time because
it's
you're not
waste
getting
time
an
and yeah,
answer. And that's why they always did business with us. They're like, we like you
yeah.
because you're a family business and your mom was the trouble. She always answered the phone and they would fix the problems, send them new products if they got damaged. We were fixing the problems. Whereas this time it's like people will just give up. There's no human connection. I mean, what do you think, Noah?
I
Yeah.
just wonder what their cost. I wonder what their cost saving measures, because all that's for cost savings. They're trying to cut out paying people, right? And so
Yeah.
they go with more automation. But what does not paying people? What price are they paying for not paying? Meaning, I mean, how many people are hanging up because they're not going to go through that automation process, or how many people are going away from a certain product because it's you know they're not able to connect to somebody on the other end of the phone, or walk into a place and have a conversation about the actual product or whatever it is, or service, if it's a product or a service. um so yeah, I mean, it's just so this is all built on principles, which are
I
basic
love
principles.
that.
And I don't pertain to be, you know I'm I don't consider myself even an expert. I mean, I consider myself just a journeyman.
Free thinker.
I've owned my own small businesses.
Yeah.
Grew up in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Worked 2 decades in the customer experience business in the golf industry. Running operations, and been in corporate America since '06, basically, right? In when I got in the golf business up here as director of operations here at a local club, and then in over almost 9 years in home sales business, and on both sales and now management side of it. And so experiences, does it make me an expert? Maybe an authority on some of the subject, but and there's a million ways to skin a cat, the
Yeah.
old saying. But I look at it and go, if nobody's going to agree with everything in the book, and I don't expect that. But if somebody that's new to sales, or been in sales for a long time, and they read it, and man, it changes their outlook, and it makes them better, or the new person, they start with the right approach because they say, hey man, I know I need to connect better. Maybe it's a young person that's grown up on their phone and only really knows automation. And they
Yeah,
say, well,
that's what I
shoot,
was
maybe,
thinking.
That's what I was
yeah,
gonna.
What
Yeah.
were you gonna
yeah,
say,
maybe
Noah?
I need to connect with people. If I affect, I've sold 130 some copies at this point. It's only been up for about a month, but
It's
I
so
look at it and
exciting.
go, if it's helped 5 people or 3 people so far, that's,
That's what it's
you know,
about. It's one
that's a
person
win
at
for
a time.
me.
Yeah, it's a
you
win
know,
for all of us. What do
I
you
didn't
think,
write it
Noah?
for,
I want to hear what Noah thinks about this.
Yeah, I was gonna say just from like a younger perspective that I think the automation, at least for my generation, is kind of causing people to be trained in it, and it's kind of setting my generation up for kind of, well, there are people are already kind of less personable and kind of less sociable, and I think it's kind of training young individuals to be less personable, which I don't think is setting my generation up for success for
I don't think
just
so either.
connectivity and just being able to relate with individuals, and just kind of like all you're talking about with the relationship building, that it's people are turning more to like just being connected through digital or connected through social media, and like people would probably in my generation be less apt to go out and do something versus maybe just be inside and do something virtual, which that's probably part of the effect of what's happening with turning stuff to automation and more technology,
Yeah.
yeah,
or at least being reliant upon the technology.
Yeah. And it really makes me sad because the human connection is so important. It really is. I mean, think about it. You, Noah, up there when you were in, you're in the governmental, you got to meet Donald Trump. Why do you think he was so successful? Because he had a human connection with all those people he was building. I mean, when he was building those buildings, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
He
exactly.
he
And
got to
even
know these people. He knew their families. He knew that this guy's, mother just died of cancer, so he's going to help her with their medical bills. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You rob people of that human connection. That's not what God wants. I mean, when I was reading your book, Jeff, I was like, a lot of these principles are life principles that I learned when I was a Celebrate Recovery leader, and a lot of these
yeah,
principles are like proverbs in the Bible. A gentle answer turns away wrath. I mean, if you disconnect people, they're not going to know how to communicate effectively. And like growing up at Exmoor with all these family entrepreneurs and very wealthy people, my dad would come in from playing golf, or my mom and dad, and we'd sit down and we would listen to them talk. And
yeah,
that's how I learned a lot about politics. That's how I learned a lot about art. We were just having dinner or meeting people and learning to shake their hands and having manners,
yeah,
life
yeah.
skill manners. This book is a lot about that. I love this book. I'm like,
Well,
I love it.
appreciate it.
So
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, it all definitely goes back to that. And Noah, in the world of politics, I mean, you look at it too. I mean, you talk about voting. I mean, let's just face it. Nobody's going to get to you don't get to know a politician. You know their persona, and so people vote for people that they like. But it's they're liking an image that they're portraying, right? I mean, so and it's a reputation, you know.
mhm,
Sure, somebody's going to bring policies, or we don't know though, because they all say they're going to do something, right? And they all say they're going to bring certain policies to the table. They're going to
mhm,
change this and change that. So you end up having to trust what they're saying, right? But
Mm,
it becomes a popularity contest. And so the best politicians, what are they great at? They're great at connection. They're great at they're
that's what
great
I'm
at the human connection.
saying.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And I thought
it's
about Noah, when he was campaigning for these people in Indiana with the governor and stuff. He's going out. Were you going out and meeting people?
Yeah, oh yeah. All
So,
sorts
and,
of
and you're
connectivity.
probably asking questions like, what matters to you, and then you're listening and you're conversing with them. Well, let me explain to you what our candidate is going to bring, and this is what their background is and how they feel about a human being. So I think about you a lot when you were out doing that in that arena. It
Absolutely.
it all it transforms across the whole thing.
yeah.
Every single part of business, society, government. What do you think?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that I mean, yeah, looking at it, right, like the people who end up winning that maybe, well, if they are the big name, it's really because of their ability to campaign and kind of carry their character, like, whether that's you either look at like we could look at presidents like and look at Obama, like he won with, he's just able to connect with so many people. Trump, he's able to just with his voice connect with so many people. It just shows, um, like you're saying, like just to being able to connect with people is that's where they can really succeed the most, and it's very interesting to look at.
And then, we look at like we talk about being a man of action and integrity, and you're lining up with your words. Like so many politicians in the past and our government were promising us things that didn't happen. And you see what's happening in the current administration, and the actions are lining up with the words. I'm going to do this, and he's doing it. So that's going
Yeah,
to build trust in our country, and hopefully things will come back economically as well, because so many people are suffering.
yeah,
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 absolutely.
and he's still hated for it.
And he's still hated for it. They hate
Yeah,
him.
Yeah,
yeah,
Because it's like a lot like what we talked about before. He thinks outside the box, and he's not the status quo.
yeah,
and I think
So
it's
yeah,
also
yeah,
important to like for people to maintain that perspective that like the president doesn't make laws or really do anything other than stamp the veto or allow. He can make suggestions, which I think it's important for people to look at, that your senators and your local folks are really going to have the most impact. And
yes.
really just looking at that, it's not always federal and big picture, that like people pointing fingers that this person, when they're people running for president, they say all sorts of stuff, but what they're really realistically able to do is limited. So I think it's important for people to look at the spectrum and be like, okay, you know, I might like this aspect for president, but for what my Congress or even my local mayor can do, it's important to look at the
Yeah, the
different
local
avenues.
politics is just as
yeah,
important. For sure. And, we go
yep,
back to that. You ran a team. I've run a team. I've got a team right now. You're working as a team. Now that's what our constitution that was built on, we got Congress, we got the executive, and the judicial branch. That's a team,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you make things happen, whether it be local or, up
yeah,
higher in
no,
the.
no question. Yep, yeah, yep,
So it's
and
exciting to see. Hey, Noah, do you want to tell us about what happened at this last meeting that you went to? Because I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to tie it in first, something that you were talking about, Dad, kind of really reminded me of my own experience, and kind of just a lot of like what you said made me realize kind of how I molded myself into who I am, kind of by role modeling myself after you. And
Yeah.
first, kind of talking about those small touch points that you showed me, kind of just to be more altruistic and caring for people first. I feel like I
Yes.
really carry that into my work. And for me, it's kind of showing up in things like having one-on-one conversations, at least for my work with landowners, and having follow-up conversations with individuals and making sure that the relationship comes first. And I think that's what really kind of allows me to stand out in my type of work, not chasing the money or self-interest, but really just trying to genuinely caring for others and their needs. And that's kind of what leads me into my story a little bit, and the way you're writing your book about standing up for what's right, connects directly kind of what I do. And so last week I had my first public hearing where the local government was overseeing a special land use permit for a solar project in Michigan. And what we do in these hearings is really just stand up for the landowners, their rights and their interests in wanting to host an energy project, while pushing for fair, workable ordinances. It's really just about, balancing those rights with the community's concerns. And I knew that this area and this crowd was going to be a little bit bigger. There's about 80 people there, and probably about 15-ish speakers that came before me. And at first, I signed up to speak early because I kind of wanted to get it out of the way at first. But they actually went in reverse order, which meant kind of instead of getting it out of the way, I was second to last. And for someone who can kind of be more anxious, it could have been a little overwhelming, but in that moment, I really leaned on God and just took a breath, stayed calm, drank some water, and kind of reminded myself to, just put my worries into God. And I kind of told myself, God is my back. Don't need to fear. And
Amen.
by the time I stood up, I really felt ready going to second to last. And, from the kind of the feedback I got from my coworker and just some others in the room, they said I spoke clearly, confidently, and with impact and didn't even need my notes. I really just closed them and started just to speak from the heart about property rights, the importance of valuing landowners and why we should embrace economic opportunities like renewable energy. And then I look back and I saw that kind of as God's hand in guiding me. He kind of made me wait near the end so I could grow through the experience. The
Yeah.
challenge kind of molded me into someone more confident and prepared for future hearings and just more trusting in his plan. Kind of reminded me something we talked about a few weeks ago on the other podcast where Marsha was like, God is kind of molding you into who you need to become. And
Hmm.
that night kind of drew away two bigger lessons. First, that God, always has strength. He always can strengthen me if I put my worries on him. And second, when the majority in the room necessarily isn't on your side, you can kind of stand firm in truth and fight for what's right. And in that moment of faith, there's really just courage and clarity, and kind of really provided me that everything happens for a reason. And God was preparing me for the bigger things ahead.
He's building your faith.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good,
Jeff,
Noah.
you must be so proud of him.
Oh yeah, man. Noah's
He's,
come a long way
yeah.
um, from that little tyke run around like a crazy man.
He's probably so cute when he was little, like my son. It is beautiful.
Well, and and he's taken a very unconventional route. I mean, obviously, he's always had a passion for the music and everything, and but when he basically, I think it was Noah, were you like 17 when you started with Todd Houston?
Yeah. It was about
Like,
17, 18. Yeah. In high
yeah,
school.
I reached out to Todd, our neighbor, and I don't know if we talked about it or I don't remember how it came up originally, but said maybe you could get involved with some stuff with Todd. He's, because he was a politician, and he started with his campaign, right, Noah? I mean,
Yeah.
he's built from kind of a field guy that started in the field a little bit, helping to being the field leader, right? And
Yeah.
Wow.
um,
That's
over
awesome.
over the years, and then landing this job that he's pouring his heart and soul into with this um, company up there in Michigan and everything. And so yeah, it's been great to watch him develop and his personal growth and everything. Obviously, it sounds like, I mean, he's got some spiritual growth going on too, which is nice to see.
Yeah. We need that
You
spiritual
know,
growth as well, because we're all going
Absolutely.
through something. And that's the other thing about being kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. You know,
Exactly.
right
yeah,
now,
yeah,
I've got a big storm in my life. My mom's got some serious health issues. And so every day I wake up, I'm like, God, I don't even know how I'm going to make it today. But
yeah,
when I am weak, he is strong. So I
yeah,
just rely
yeah,
on my faith to get through every single day, every moment. And then I make it. And then I get up the next
yeah,
day and I do it again.
yeah.
We show up. And this book, how can we get your book, copies of your book?
So yeah, I mean, obviously it's on Amazon. You just do a search with my name, Jeff
We'll put
Batita, Buttita.
we'll
I
put
just I
links in
just
the
need to
description
sell
too.
about 1 million copies, and then we'll be done with it.
Well, I think we
I'll
can
be
do
I'll be
that. I've got some
I'll
ideas
be
for you.
somewhere with a background like Noah has right now.
Yeah,
Sipping
that's what I'm going
pina
for too.
coladas.
I'm doing the
No,
same
but
thing, Jeff. When I get these series written, I said I'm not made for this. I'm gonna once I get these series written that I'm trying to write with all the principles from my Mighty Madeline book, which are really life
yeah,
lessons. They use my
yeah,
children's book in addiction recovery centers because it teaches about gratitude and rest, and it's for all ages. Once I can get this thing,
yeah,
in the hands of I had one 98-year-old woman say, every child in America needs this book. And I believe
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. Yeah.
You know,
And
because
this,
I won a Mom's Choice Award for it, but it's the same. There's principles in these books that you can use across the board in your interactions with people.
yeah.
And
And
that's what Noah is saying. You know, he's saying, I'm coming from the heart. And in one of the lines in the children's book is what matters most is you follow your heart. It'll serve you
yeah,
well in whatever you start. You know, you've got that in your heart too, Jeff. I've got it in my heart. Noah's got it in his. And I
yeah,
think we just want to get these like old school principles out to people because, you know, we're moving in a
yeah,
world that's moving too fast. Slow
yeah.
it
And
down.
it's funny.
Slow down.
It's
Slow down.
I've always been business minded. I'm operational. Um, I'm very system oriented and process oriented, but I've never lost that early, you know, small business mentality. I've always been entrepreneurial, obviously. I
Me
mean,
too.
when I opened up my medical company, J&B Medical, I was talking to a doctor on the driving range, Dr. Dave Fisher. Um, this was here at the Hawthorns, the club I was director of golf at, and um, we were just talking about stuff, and um, I asked him, at this time I was employed there. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about medical, but I was like, hey, what you're a doctor, and I was thinking, we were talking about sales and stuff, I think in general.
Mhm.
I think that particular day we had a big sale, and I had vendors out on the range with equipment and everything, and we were talking about stuff, and I don't know how the conversation went to medical sales, but he was one of the principals at Ortho Indy. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and so I said, how hard is it for salespeople to get in there? And how it's brutally hard in medical to crack into
Mhm.
hospitals and those systems basically, and especially surgeons. Surgeons, you know, to be legally paid, they go on their advisory. They become advisory staff people for
Yeah.
DePuy, Stryker, Medtronic, companies like that, the big boys. But and so it made me start thinking I could do something like that. Well, anyway, down the road, um, I was playing golf with surgeon friend of mine from Community North, Dr. Paul Kramer, and this was after the Hawthorns got bought by a golf management company, and
Oh,
all of us in the top uh, management positions, if you will, all the directors, we lost our jobs there. They came in and they basically brought in people, paid them half. Um, they cut the salaries way back. Another kind of thing what they do, right?
yeah, they
They come
do.
in and they cut. Um, so I was talking to Paul. I said, I'm gonna open up a little medical company and get a implant spine. I had back surgery. He had actually done
Oh,
my he had done my L5S1 fusion surgery,
okay.
and he's like, you're crazy. He goes, you can't. He goes, you can't just all of a sudden open a medical company. I said, no, you maybe not. Well, heck, I just started watching stuff on YouTube and reading, and I got some medical lingo down and this and that, and I picked up a spine implant that was plasma coated. At the time, it was the only company who had this plasma coated implant.
Okay.
And I said, if I get this, are you going to buy from me? Or you're gonna get me in the OR? I didn't even know the protocol yet, But he goes, oh yeah, probably thinking I would never do it. Well, I picked up a medical line. I learned all about it and everything. And he kept knocking on his door, so to speak, and he never answered. And so finally, I got him to answer the door, and I started sitting in on cases, and he might use two or three implants, and I mean, they were like 10 grand per implant.
Oh my
It's
God.
expensive, right? And so, um, um, I grew from there. I did cases at St. V's, IU Health, um, and I kind of grew that little JMB Medical. I ended up picking up some parallel lines. So I thought, hey, if I have spine, you know, you're going to have spine, you have pain associated with spine issues. So I picked up some pain management products that went
Wow.
along. So I enlarged my bag of tools basically. So when I went into these offices, if they didn't need this, well, maybe you need this. Oh, if you don't need that, maybe you need this.
That's like me.
So I tried to add a value, right? I wanted to have a value that I could add to an office. And anyway, that's a very long story getting to a short point. I I've always been entrepreneurial. I mean, I did that from the ground up and from scratch with no, I mean, you know, I'm I was in the OR in scrubs and learned about the product on my own and was able to successfully do it for a few years and then got kind of squeezed out. They started consolidating the hospitals and really the big players, like I mentioned, Medtronic, DePuy, Stryker. Those were the big three that I was always up against. I was with a small spine company. I had bone stimulators. I had some back bracing. I had some topical pain medication, things like that too. But it just got very very difficult to get indoors. But if you're entrepreneurial and you have a mindset where you think you're going to do it and you attack it and I drew up a business plan, wrote a business plan, came up with a way to do it, and I did it. So
See, you don't give up.
yeah, and so um, you either survive or you die, basically, right? You know, it's kind of the island mentality. If you're on an island, you got to figure it out, right?
Absolutely. That's what I
Got to
love
figure
about
out where the coconut tree is.
that's what I love about this book. I was like, oh,
you
I love
know.
this book. I relate to everything in it.
So, but then there's a million sales books out there, but a lot of them are more, you know, I use the word guru. They're more guru written, and they're more tactic loaded. A lot of tactics, a lot of what people would refer to as sales formulas.
Right.
Um, and I just don't think it needs to be that deep.
That's why it
I think,
says it's selling without scripts.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then that takes away the formula
yeah,
thing, you know?
yeah. I mean, you need consistency. I mean, you need your teams to deliver the same message if they're selling, whatever the widget is they're selling. They need to be consistent, but they need to be themselves and you know empower your teams, empower them to write their own scripts, right? If
Exactly.
and not a script they're going to read. It's basically bullet points that are in their head that can flow naturally in a conversation. If somebody thinks they're being read to or that this is completely rehearsed and you can't deviate from that rehearsed and your tone doesn't change, your eye contact, you don't make eye contact, etc., you're going to turn people away.
Yeah.
And these days, people come in. I said, another classic line is assume the sale. A lot of these sales gurus are saying, hey, if a customer comes in, assume they're going to buy. Well, they could be, and there's a very good chance that they're buyers if they came to you, right? But I would say, assume that they're coming in with their guard up. Assume that they're coming in with a bunch of knowledge already, right? So that they're pretty educated because they can find the information. But the big assumption is assume they want to learn more. They want to
That's
learn a lot
totally
more,
true. I'm gonna
you
tell you
know?
that's how I buy things, Jeff. I mean, like,
Yeah,
yeah, if I walked in anywhere and somebody assumes they're gonna get the sale from me, they're not.
yeah,
And I'll tell you why. Because actually addiction recovery, you deal with spending addictions, you know what I mean? I myself had one at one point.
yeah,
After I got my divorce, I was like, "Oh, I can do anything I want." I obviously went into recovery and I, overcame that. But now I go into somewhere and they want to assume the sale. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait for about 24 hours. I'm going to maybe wait for
Yeah.
42 hours or maybe even 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
assume I'm going to buy this very expensive item right now because I've got to think about it. And
Mhm.
I am informed when I go in there, or, I know that there might be other places. So I don't assume you're going to get the
Yeah.
sale
Yeah.
all the
And
time.
I say it,
Yeah,
I say it in the book, the old saying, assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
I totally agree.
I put it right in the
I
book.
told one of my
I
groups
mean,
I'm in, I'm like, I assume nothing
yeah,
about anybody
I
anymore.
mean, it's
I
just,
assume
it,
nothing.
it's, it's a little arrogant to assume, in my mind.
It
And
is.
so I look at it and go, you're not giving that person any credit, and you're not going to do them justice. You're not going to provide them with what they need, so educate them first, connect with them.
Right.
Again, it's simple. You don't need a formula. You don't need formulas to do this stuff. Salespeople don't need formulas. They need guidance, they need coaching, but the coaching is just going through different scenarios. I'm not huge on like total role play where a customer walks in and I'm the customer, you're the salesperson, because like I say in the book, we're not actors, and you're not going to do it the right way. I like more think tank type situations
I'm the
where
same way.
you run objections off each other, and if you have a sales team together and you kind of think tank the situation, and you basically you help one another with those different scenarios, and so it becomes more real world there as opposed to the complete role playing. In certain situations, as I said in the book, it can be helpful. And I say too, I mean, some of the gurus, they do have a few good nuggets. You can pick up things from people. I don't dislike. I just don't like that they're more of a money grab. I mean, these people, they charge a ton of money to really state the obvious.
I
And
totally
if you have
agree. Totally agree.
salespeople that need the obvious stated to them, then you probably hired wrong. I mean, everybody's not a salesperson, and if you hire people that just don't get it, they shouldn't have been in sales. You did not
Yeah,
hire the right people.
I've tried to do that before. My mom trained me where she flew down to Florida and I watched her
Yeah,
go to, she trained me I watched her. We
yeah,
booked my
yeah,
first appointment at the elementary school that my kids went to. We went to that meeting and I just watched her. And then she flew down one time to go to one of my biggest customers and do a sales meeting. And it was really funny when my mom got up to go to the bathroom. And my mom and I were collaborating when she asked about a certain series for these teens in this middle school. And when she got up, she was like, "How can you deal with your mother?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
yeah,
Because she really liked my sales style. My mom was a little bit more aggressive, but I didn't see it that way because we were working as a team, you know.
yeah,
And then it reminded me of in the very last sales meeting I went to with my mom. She came, and my parents' business, Ileana.
yeah, yeah,
Goes, at the end of it, she goes, "I actually think you're a better salesperson than I am now," because she noticed that I listened more.
yeah,
I listened more. And then it was funny after that when they had to close their business. Um, my mom had me go work for one of those kind of bigger jobbers. I kind of got a job with one of those bigger jobbers that I used to compete with. And so I go back to my customers and the counties, and they wouldn't even do business with me anymore. Like, "We liked your
yeah,
family business."
yeah. That's
It
funny.
is what it is. And those gurus, like, because I've gone, I've gone on a lot of seminars, and they'll go, "Okay, it's free the first kind, or maybe it costs $250." And you go to these seminars and they give you some nuggets, like you're saying, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Okay, now we're going to ask you to pay $18,000 to come work with us." I'm not gonna.
Yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. And
And it's
you
just
know,
learning
it,
by experience.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But and again, I think you can pick up things, but they're hyped, they're rehearsed. They're selling their system, and here's the thing: everybody's got a system. I mean, there's so many so-called systems out there, right? I mean, and but at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to the basics, and who does the basics right, who dots their I's and crosses their T's. And like I say in the book, once the lights are on, which is basically you with the customer, you don't have all those one-liners that you heard at the seminar, and all the 10x slogans and et cetera, et cetera. It's just you got to perform then. I mean,
Yeah.
better be you. You better be
Better.
you. If you're not, you're not going to have a long career in the sales side of it. That's for sure. So,
Yeah, I
um,
agree.
but yeah, this is transferable. This is transferable anything. I mean, it's
It really is, because when I was reading it,
Mhm.
I mean, I saw so much. I was writing all these notes and writing down certain things that I can glean
Yeah.
from the book and from my personal experiences. Then it gives you a place for reflection.
Yeah. I added that in there. I thought it was funny. The people who helped me publish it, they were like, "You want a notes section?" I go, "I don't want to call it notes. I don't want." I said, "Reflection. You're going to read that, then you're going to reflect. You're reflecting on how do I do it? How am I doing it? How was I doing it? How
Yeah,
do I want to do it? Put some notes down. What
yeah.
would you pick up from that section, right? That part of the book. And like I said, it's I don't I don't pertain to be a know-it-all, an expert, and
Neither
um,
do I.
there's just things in there that hopefully people get out of it, and it's real world. It's not somebody creating a fancy formulas that you got to do this to succeed or you'll fail. You know,
Yeah,
because that's hogwash. That's
it is
crap.
hogwash. It really is. Well, this has been so fun to have both of you guys on the show this
Yeah,
time, and
That's
just so grateful to
it's a
God that I
long
met
one.
both of you when I moved to Indianapolis. I mean, you guys have really helped me in my life and my business. So thank you, Jesus, for all of that. And I just look forward to whatever
Yeah,
happens in the future with all of us, huh?
absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having us on, Julia. I mean,
All right.
it's great talking
Well,
about the little book and
yeah,
I was gonna say
Noah's journey and everything, and you
yeah.
know
we'll be
more
sure to
about
throw
you.
your
And
gonna say
What's that?
we'll be sure to throw your book in the description as well.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll put it in the notes in the description so people can go to have a link from our podcast
yeah,
to Amazon and how to buy it. So, all right. Well, you guys have
awesome.
a great
Yeah.
day. We'll see you next week, right?
All right. See ya. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you guys. Bye
Bye.
now. Bye.